Hello, welcome back. I hope you all had a good Christmas. Today I'm going to be making a sculpture of an octopus and then securing it into a rock. That's pretty much all I've got to say about it. Let's get straight into the video. So I've got a piece of 16mm square bar. I'm going to start by upsetting the end to get the end wider, and then we can round it up, and this can be the head of the octopus. Now I'm going to put a dome on the end of the bar. You got to make sure to upset the end to stop that fish lips from happening, because otherwise we'll get cold shuts forming, which will lead to cracks, and we don't want that. So you've got to make sure to upset the end. So we have the end slightly domed over, and if you haven't worked it out, that's the back of the head. So this is inevitably going to be cut off of this handlebar length, and then we can weld on some legs. But I want to put some eyes onto the head, so I'll clamp this in the vise, dot the eyes, and then I'll probably actually punch them properly in on the anvil rather than in the vise, as it may be a little bit easier to do it just on the anvil. And then, of course, we can cut it off and weld the legs on. Well, make the legs and then weld the legs on. So I'll leave this to cool down, and then we can cut it off from this bar. And I may also do a little bit of creative grinding to make it look like the eyes are sort of a bit more coming out of the face. So if we grind around the eyes, you can sort of get this extra look, which makes it look a bit more like an octopus rather than just a bar with two eyes punched in it. I realised I forgot to punch the pupils into the eyes. I'll do that now. Doesn't have to be an overly high heat. A red heat is fine for this. I'm going to move on to making the legs now. Of course, there are 8 legs. I'm going to be making them out of 6mm round, and on each bar I'm going to just do a quick 1 heat taper, and then we can cut them off, weld them together and weld those to the head. To do this in a heat, I'm starting working half on, half off over the far edge of the anvil, drawing that material down. Then I work the end down, knock the corners off, get that to a nice round, as that's going to cool down first, so we want to get that ready and finished. Come back, planish the sides square, Then knock the corners off. Then roll to get a nice round. I mean, it is definitely a one heat wonder. It's nothing special. It's a dirty round, but it works. It's a nice quick way to get there, and you know, you can do these 8 tapers in about 10 minutes. I have my 8 legs done and cut to length. I've wrapped them up into a little bundle just with some wire so we can hold them together whilst I weld them. And so I'm going to weld them with a stick welder just because it's going to be a bit easier. I was thinking about how we could forge weld this, and there are sort of 2 options really that I was thinking about that would be feasible. One is to weld them one by one, or weld them in pairs and then weld pairs together. And the other way is to do something similar to this, wrap it all up and then weld it in a spring swage. As if you try something like this, something that is round, and you just try and weld it without it being contained, as soon as you hammer on the top, it's just going to spread out at the sides and not weld. Whereas in a spring swage, you know, a round spring swage, you can get contact on all sides. So when you hit on the top, it can't go out to the sides because it's contained. Anyway, those are sort of the 2 ways that I was thinking about forge welding it, but I'm not going to do those just for time and ease. So I'm going to weld them with the stick welder, and then we can again weld this with the stick welder onto the head. Also, there are not 8 pieces of steel in this bundle, there are 9. And that is because in the middle there is just a piece of 6mm round bar, which is what we're going to use to fix the Octopus to the rock, as that piece is going to go into the rock and get epoxy resin in so that it is connected. We're not just going to rely on the legs holding it on, or the tentacles holding it on. We're going to actually resin it into the rock. I've got the bundle welded together and I've quickly ground it up a little bit, and it's ready to be welded onto the head. And I've just ground a flat on the bottom of it, so we've got a bit of a better surface to be welding to. So we can just quickly weld it on and then again grind it up so it looks a bit more like it should be one piece rather than it having some nasty welds on. I've just done some rough grinding to blend in all of the welds. Now we can go on to some creative grinding. I'm going to round up the front of the face, make the eyes sort of more pronounced, so grinding around the eyes to remove some material. And then also we can take a cutting disc and just flow the tentacles into the body, rather than it being sort of like a sudden weld. We can blend them in a little bit more as well. So you can see that the eyes are a bit more pronounced. They sort of have a ring around each of them. So I can now begin to blend in the legs. I'll just show you the result there. So you can see that the legs are sort of blending into the body, or the tentacles are blending into the body. We can now put this into the forge, heat it up, and begin to shape all of the legs. Before we shape the legs, I'm actually just going to drill a hole in the rock, and that's so that, number one, we can get it centered, or we can get it in position on the rock, so I know how the legs are then going to form around it, but also to make sure that the rock isn't just going to break in two, as I don't want to forge all of the legs to shape to this specific rock and then break the rock when I drill the hole. So I'll quickly just drill the hole. So I've just poured some oil, literally just some vegetable oil, over the octopus, and then I'm wiping away the excess with a rag. And you can see it's steaming a little bit, and that's just because the octopus itself is a little bit hot, so that we're actually burning the oil on, so we get a nice darkened finish, which is gonna not only look nice, but stop the piece from rusting. I'll leave this to cool down, and then we can resin it into the stone. So this was actually quite a tricky thing to do. There was a lot of heats to get the legs into the correct position, and I kept on trying it in the stone to make sure that the legs were sort of in the right place. And it was a very tricky thing to heat up in the coal forge, because it's such a weird shape with all the legs coming off at different angles. So you had to be very careful not to burn the ends off of one of the tentacles rather than legs. I keep on calling them legs. They're tentacles. But anyway, you had to be very careful about not burning off one of the tentacles when you're trying to heat up another one, because they're all in different positions. However, I think it is quite a nice little sculpture. You know, it looks just like an octopus on a rock. You can't really tell how it's attached, and that was always sort of the plan of this piece, is that it is literally just a sculpture of an octopus on a rock. This piece is actually for an exhibition that I'm doing. It's a wildlife exhibition. It's not for a couple of months, but I don't really have anything made for it, so there's hopefully going to be a few more videos in which I'm doing something very similar to this. Maybe not sea life, maybe some more land animals and things like that, but very, very similar to this. Sculptures, animal, wildlife, plants, all of that sort of stuff, that sort of themed items. So there's hopefully going to be a few more videos in which I'm doing things similar to this. So if you're up for that, please stick around and I'll hopefully get them done at some point. So also, it's been quite a while since my last video, and that was just because of Christmas. Like in December, I was very busy with orders and everything. I was working all the time with Christmas markets and then everything like that. So I'm afraid that I didn't get time to do any videos. This video is actually being filmed in that weird section of time in between Christmas and New Year. So happy Christmas, and I suppose I'm hoping to try get this video out on New Year. So also happy New Year. Anyway, thank you for watching the video, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.